Hyundai is looking for a competitive edge in the subcompact market, and I'm with the 2024 all-new second generation Hyundai Kona, completely redesigned from the ground up. I'm specifically with the EV version. Let's take a look and see what changes have been made inside and outside and learn more about Hyundai's subcompact crossover. The Hyundai Kona has had a pretty impressive debut through its first generation, and what Hyundai Canada says is between the years 2019 and 2022, they earned a nearly 20% market share, which is pretty impressive considering how competitive the class is. And if you're wondering who else is in that class, the Subaru Crosstrek, the Nissan Qashqai, the Honda HR-V, Mazda CX-30, Toyota CHR, as well as the Toyota Corolla Cross. The interesting approach Hyundai's taken here is they designed the Hyundai Kona EV first, and then they made changes to the internal combustion engine version, as opposed to what the majority of other automakers have done, including Hyundai previously, which is a little different from what we're used to because it was the internal combustion engine designed first, and then the EV was made to fit around it. For the subcompact segment, Hyundai says the new Kona will be one of the largest vehicles in its class, and with every new vehicle that comes out through a new generation, it gets bigger and taller and wider, and it just grows exponentially in all directions. How much has the Hyundai Kona grown from generation 1 to generation 2? Well, the length is up 145 millimeters, the width is up 25 millimeters, the height is up 20 millimeters, and the wheelbase is up 60 millimeters. Following the lead of the Elantra and the Tucson, the all-new Hyundai Kona has a lot of sharp design lines to it, a lot of bulbous parts, and it really stands out as one of the more unique vehicles in the category. The first thing you'll notice is the pixelated seamless horizon lamp, and what's impressive about that is it's one long piece that stretches the entire width of the hood. The slight downfall is it's a very expensive part, and if by some unfortunate chance the vehicle is involved in a collision, it can be a fairly expensive repair job. It's not too noticeable how much the Hyundai Kona has grown in size, but as per the numbers provided by Hyundai Canada, it is larger and longer and taller and wider, and it has that futuristic look to it, where it's still modern, but it's definitely forward-thinking, and I think it'll really help the Kona stand out. The wheel arches and fenders are really pronounced, and they really stand out. From the side profile, it looks like they're not quite part of the rest of the vehicle as far as the design goes, but if you look at it from the side and kind of head on, you'll see that it actually does work very, very well. So full marks to Hyundai's design team for making that happen and giving it such a really cool and unique look. Around the rear, there is a rear wiper, and it's on the bottom, and I asked why it wasn't at the top tucked away under the spoiler, and while that would have looked better from a design point of view, you get more coverage as far as cleaning the rear window with the wiper placed at the bottom as opposed to being tucked away at the top. Aerodynamics are a key component of all the new vehicles being made, and what Hyundai Canada says is the drag coefficient of the new Kona is only 0.27, so there's a lot of aerodynamics here, and it doesn't necessarily look like an aerodynamic vehicle upon first glance, but a closer look you'll see the nice swooping lines and how it tails off around the rear. Also around the rear there's a nice long thin light bar. It doesn't quite have that same effect and feel as the one up front, as it is split because the tailgate has to open, but from a distance it looks really sharp, and thin is in as far as lights go with Hyundai here, having that long rear light bar at the rear as well as the long one up at the front, give it a nice uniform and symmetrical look. On the specific EV variant, the charging port is up front as opposed to being around the rear, and it's just a little off center in the front bumper. On the powertrain side, there are three flavors of your second generation 2024 Hyundai Kona. First up is the EV, and it's going to use a 65.4 kilowatt per hour battery, and Hyundai says it'll go from 10 to 80% in about 41 minutes through a 100 kilowatt fast charger. Now as far as range goes, the WLTP estimated range as of right now is 490. That'll probably be tweaked a little bit the closer we get to the release date, but so far so good if these numbers hold true with a little bit of a variance in them. On the inside, it's a very familiar design language from Hyundai, and what's interesting here is that for a vehicle in such a small size in the subcompact market, Hyundai's gone ahead and given it the pair of 12.3-inch panoramic display screens, where it's one unit, but one's for the digital instrument cluster and one is for the infotainment system, but it's one long piece, and it really gives it a nice upscale look. Thankfully, Hyundai has hung on to hard touch buttons and not made everything completely reliant upon the screens. It's really distracting to have everything on the screen, so hats off to Hyundai for giving us hard touch buttons as well as advanced technology with the dual screens. There's a 3-spoke steering wheel and there's available wireless charging, and it's just a nice open area. It doesn't feel too closed in, doesn't feel too cluttered. Yes, there's lots of buttons to be had as far as the infotainment and HVAC systems go. Hyundai has found a nice balance between being modern, futuristic, and still hanging on to the traditional side of things, again with the hard touch buttons. The Hyundai Kona's cargo space has grown by a whopping 33%. And what's impressive about that is that for such a small vehicle, and yes, the dimensions have grown in all directions, inside and out, but to have that much more cargo space is really impressive, and it makes the functionality even higher. As far as dimensions go on the inside, headroom is up by 8 millimeters. Legroom is also up by 5 millimeters in the front and an impressive 77 millimeters around the rear. Shoulder room up front is increased by 33% and 17% in the rear. So Hyundai has really listened to what their consumers want, which is we like something small and we also want something big on the inside where it's not a cramped feeling. And again, through the clever design and strategic placement, Hyundai's really achieved this, and I think it's going to be very, very well received. There's lots of functional space up front, specifically in the center console, where the cup holders have that small piece that retract and come out depending if you're using them, and if you're not using them, you have a nice space for whether it's a purse or a set of keys or a wallet or whatever it is. Hyundai does have a lot of functional space between the two front seats. As you've seen on Hyundai's Ioniq 5, the front seat pretty much goes nearly flat to let you relax, and on the EV version of the new Kona, it does the same thing. It takes a little bit of time to get there because it's all powered seats, but as you're waiting for your EV to charge, you can lay back, relax, and take a look at some other videos from Driving.ca. Having spent some time in the rear seats, they are very comfortable, and impressively, I can sit behind myself. And the reason that's so impressive is I've got really long legs, and all the vehicles I test out, I push the seat as far back as it can go. So knowing that I can fit behind myself in my safe driving position is definitely a plus for the Kona. The gear selector is mounted to the steering column, and it's not a new design language for Hyundai, but it does free up a lot of space in the center console. So I would happily take the gear selector where it is and gain functional space, which I'd use every day as opposed to having the gear selector in the center console. With the new Kona, there are over-the-air updates, and what's good about that is it saves on cost, it avoids trips to service centers for Hyundai Kona owners, and you always have the latest software as far as having a convenient ownership experience. Despite not having driven the new Kona, I can say after spending a fair amount of time with it, visibility is good out of the side windows and as well the rear window. And in a vehicle this small, having visibility is really important, because just because you have a small footprint, sometimes it gets compromised with other vehicles in the class where outward visibility isn't that strong. Trims and packaging have not been fully announced yet, but what Hyundai does say is that their blind spot view monitor, the one where the cameras and these side mirrors show up in your digital dashboard and let you see what's behind you, which is a pretty cool technology, that will be available on the Hyundai Kona, as well forward collision avoidance and highway drive assist 2. The smart cruise control function, rear cross traffic alert, lane keep assist, lane follow assist, intelligent speed limit assist, driver attention warning, and high beam assist. Once we're closer to the launch date, we'll have more details on exactly how those packages are laid out with different vehicles in the Kona lineup and different trims. Hyundai's come a long way from the first generation Kona to what we have here as the second generation for 2024. I think that between the combination of intelligent styling and edgy styling, as well as advanced technologies and a really nice, comfortable place to be on the interior, Hyundai just may have a home run on their hands. For Driving.ca, I'm Jay Kona. Connect with us on our social media platforms. Visit us at Driving.ca for more news, reviews, and information you can use on EVs and hybrid vehicles.